The funny thing about progress is that it will, over time, become the traditions of tomorrow. The history of a Monsoon class began in the 2300s, when the Terran Hegemony had its Dreadnought class under construction, while other regional powers started developing countermeasures. Specifically, House Davion was developing its Defender-class battlecruiser. On paper, this vessel appeared formidable. It was certainly faster than a Dreadnought class and possessed comparable firepower. Unwilling to relinquish their established naval superiority, the Terran Hegemony initiated development of a next-generation battleship, intended to exceed the Dreadnought class and firmly reinforce the hegemony's spatial dominance, demonstrating that it would not be challenged even by ostensibly friendly powers like the Davions. Early naval engagements fought by the hegemony navy influenced the development of more advanced designs, culminating in the Monsoon-Class Battleship. This powerful new vessel established the blueprint that naval architecture would follow. Conceptually and technologically superior to any contemporary vessel, these massive battleships established a fearsome reputation during both the hegemony's expansion and the destructive age of war. Their operational history ultimately contributed to a naval tradition that continued into the Star League Navy. At 1,310,000 tons and 1,108 meters in length, the new Hegemony Monsoon class was 350,000 tons heavier and 510 meters longer than the Dreadnought. It improved upon the Dreadnought template in nearly every metric and set the standard for battleship design for centuries. Leveraging their industrial capacity, the Hegemony produced the new battleship in numbers no other power could match. The first Monsoons entered service in 2368, merely 8 years after the Davions constructed their first Defender class, still struggling to complete the second ship. The Monsoon class incorporated the latest spaceship construction technologies, including dedicated hangars for newly developed aerospace fighters with capacity for 18 craft. Later, they were all refitted with integrated dropship collars, and this significantly enhanced operational flexibility, as the ship could carry dropships to deploy tanks, infantry, and later battle mechs, eliminating dependence on older drop shuttles and arm shuttles for force projection. With 6 dropship collars, a Monsoon could independently carry a formidable invasion force. This capability was mirrored by the Dart-class light cruiser, which also carried 6 dropships and served as a Monsoon's primary escort after its refit. This would be the case until the introduction of the Aegis class. The Monsoon did not lack firepower. Unlike the Dreadnought, it featured energy weapons for long-range engagements and missile launchers capable for deploying nuclear warheads, though the Hegemony had transitioned to kinetic explosive warheads for standard operations. Protection was impressive for the period, with over 2,300 tons of armor plating the ship's hull, better protected than the Dreadnought and the most heavily armored warship class until the later introduction of the Three Worlds League's Atrians class. One significant limitation compared to the Dreadnought and Black Lion was its thrust rating. The Monsoon's 3 massive thrusters could generate only 1.5 Gs of sustained thrust, compared to the Dreadnought's 2.5 Gs. However, this was not a critical flaw for fleet operations, as the NBC, Naga, Baron, and Carson destroyers that formed the Hegemony's main destroyer force also produced only 1.5 G at full burn, as did the Aegis and Dart classes. Only the larger fleet destroyers like the Lola 1 and 2 with 3 Gs thrust and the Black Lion battlecruiser with 2.5 G sustained thrust formed the fast wing of the battle line. This low thrust rating made the Monsoon sluggish in turning and slow to reorient to present undamaged sections to opponents. However, no contemporary vessel could effectively engage a Monsoon in direct combat. The Defender class, while fast, was fragile, lightly built, and outgunned. Not until the appearance of a Farragut in 2448 and the Atreus in 2552 would a ship seriously challenge a Monsoon in a stand-up fight. Entirely armed with naval-grade weaponry, the Monsoon was formidable. Like the Dreadnought, its primary firepower derived from massed autocannons, with NAC-30s and NAC-35s providing lethal capability at shorter ranges. This armament could defeat any single smaller adversary. At an perfect angle, with broadsides oriented towards the target, a Monsoon could bring 3 NAC-30s, 6 NAC-35s, 6 medium naval PPCs, and 1 White Shark missile launcher, potentially nuclear armed, to bear. This concentration of firepower could destroy any vessel in the Star League Defense Force inventory, including the much younger McKenna-class battleship. The Monsoon possessed a huge cargo capacity of 295,637.5 tons and carried 6,000 tons of fuel, enabling extended field operations. The class featured 6 dropship collars and 3 bays capable of transporting 1 wing of aerospace fighters and 8 small craft. Variants. SLDF admirals, unwilling to retire their legendary vessel, spent substantial resources to maintain relevance, initiating expensive lithium fusion battery upgrades starting in 2574. Only 10 were successfully upgraded before class retirement. Installation reduced cargo capacity by 13,100 tons. The Monsoon was in service for an extended period because the Hegemony Navy was reluctant to retire ships with legendary names such as Barham, Richelieu, and Thunderer. But the reunification war presented the final campaign for these vessels. Although they again terrorized enemy fleets, it became apparent that the great houses finally possessed designs that could outclass a Monsoon. Post-war budgetary constraints made justifying their maintenance increasingly difficult for the Admiralty. The last Monsoon-Class Battleship was retired in 2668. Some decommissioned Monsoons were sold or gifted to Star League member states during the Star League era. By April 2765, the Rimworld Republic operated 7 Monsoons as part of its navy. At least 1 Monsoon joined Alexander Kerensky's Exodus fleet, though its ultimate fate remains unknown. Any other survivors were presumably destroyed during the American Civil War or acquired by the great houses and expended during the First and Second Succession Wars, as no Monsoon-class vessels remained in service in the innersphere.